like, no. I was like, let's get your courses out into the world, and you're on probation. You cannot build any more courses until we sell these. I get it. Like, that's the creative entrepreneurial spirit, but it's not a hobby. It's a business. We're regularly selling it.
Hello. It's Holly Rustic here with Grant Writing and Funding, and I'm super excited to have Christina Edwards from Splendid Consulting on the podcast and YouTube show today, because we are going to be talking about you. If you're a nonprofit consultant, if you're a freelance grant writer, if you're out there running your own business and really looking at marketing, looking at creating lead magnets, maybe creating evergreen courses, right? All of these things, maybe that passive income you've been hearing about, and you're like, how do I do that? Before we say how to do that, we're going to say what you should think about going into it with your heart. So we're going to talk about that. Well, welcome to the show, Christina.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you come from Splendid Consulting. You really have like a big marketing background, and really looking at, I love what you're working with street teams and influencers on social media, and really helping nonprofits and causes get the word out on what they're doing. But we're kind of delving in because you're also one of the speakers at the Nonprofit Consulting Conference in August 23rd and 24th, which is presented by Founded Technologies. And we're really excited about that because you're going to be specifically talking about how to create those lead magnets. So how to get people into your funnel, right? And how to create passive income with evergreen courses. So
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be back to specifically that conference. It was my favorite conference in all of last year. I know I'm not supposed to pick favorites, but I am.
Yes, please.
I feel like as an entrepreneur, I loved being among other entrepreneurs, giving people a glimpse behind what it's really like. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 2 decades. I think something like that. And I've seen a lot of I've tried a lot. I've done a lot. I've made a lot of shifts. I had a marketing agency at one time. Then I launched my consultancy. And so it's really fun to say, here's what I've done. Here's what's worked. Here's what I've learned. And also talk to other consultants who are thinking about doing it, or other consultants who are doing it, but feel stuck.
Yeah.
And saying, here's how we take it to the next level.
Right. I love that so much because you bring in so much experience, and part of it is like the scrappiness, right, of being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And that's like a big part of it. But what I see a lot of people, especially like freelance grant writers and nonprofit consultants out there, that they're like, okay, I understand, like maybe I have an agency and I do services, like I write grants or I create fundraising appeals or whatnot, but I also want to get more people from online. I don't want to just serve my immediate community. I want to be out there because there's such a huge, right? There's millions of people out there that I can tap into, and I could create like some kind of course where I'm sleeping, I make money. There's like a huge shift toward that. So, diversifying their income, having another, not just their services, but they have products now that create money coming in. So a lot of people are toying with that idea. It's attractive, it's shiny. But what I know you talked about, like one of your main kind of tips on that is about learning to love it, learning to love marketing. So can you kind of talk about that for those people who are like, oh, that's shiny and cool?
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk all about evergreen courses for sure. And one of the things that you have to understand with building, especially an online business, maybe you can get away with it if you have a very local, community-driven consultancy. Maybe you can get away with not loving selling. But if you're going to have an online business, you need to figure out how to love selling, or at least not fight against it. Yeah. So what I mean is, if you had a local consultancy, you might get away with just word of mouth and referrals for a while. Like if you're rocking and rolling, like, yes, that could be how you acquire most of your customers. If you're building an online business and an evergreen course, right, that sells in your sleep, the thing we all want, right, you really have to learn to love selling. And I think one of the things for me, I was thinking about this a while back, which is I sort of wish that everybody had as one of their first jobs, like cold calling, just to rip the Band-Aid off
Oh,
of just
mhm.
rejection. Cold
Yeah,
calling is just annoying somebody, making them an offer, hearing a no, hanging up the phone, and then doing it again and doing it again until you
yeah,
get the yes, right? Or until you
yeah.
get the maybe. And I was a very, very strong salesperson back in college for my college job. I worked at a boutique called Betsy Johnson, and I loved the clothes so much that they were easy for me to sell. Like,
Right.
she was this punk rock designer. She was her own person. They were easy for me to sell. And then when I got into real estate, I actually had that cold calling job. Like, I had to cold
Wow.
call expired listings. And I'll never forget like that, because you're like sweating. I mean, every fundraiser is probably nodding along going, yes. You're like sweating, and you just don't know who you're going to get at the other end of the phone. And like, one of my very first listings was through a cold call. Like, we just hit it off. We were just two
Mhm.
humans connecting.
Yeah,
And like, when you realize it's not that bad, and what you're actually doing is offering them something of value, and
yeah.
there's a connective element, just like the dresses, you sort of get over yourself. And also, the other piece about it is, you're inviting somebody in. It's just an offer, whether it's a course, whether it's consulting services, whether it's anything. And if they're a no, a lot of times they're a no because they might not have understood like
Mhm.
the value of your offer. They might not have understood what it was. They might be confused on timing. There's a lot of data in the no's, I like to
Yeah,
say. So when you treat the no's as like a no, not right now, or a no, tell me more, it's not that big a deal.
yeah.
And the more I've gotten to the space of being able to sell what it is I have created and built for people, that is literally making them money, is offering value, is helping them get their time back. The more I can stay in that space, the easier it is to sell. And then
I love that.
I'm somebody who for the most part loves selling. So, but it's been like a stair step to get there, right?
Yep, absolutely. I love that, because in a lot of people, first off, I just want to kind of rewind it because I want to really emphasize what you talked about, because it's so important. Was you have your agency, word of mouth, it's going
Mhm.
around, you're getting jobs, you're in your community, that sort of thing. And then you say, I'm also going to sell things online. It's almost like another business. It's another part of your business that needs to be developed at the very least, right? When you're thinking of it.
Yep.
So it really is like an online business is a very different structure than an in-person agency. And yes, you can kind of grow it organically together, but at the same time, there's very different elements that go into it, right?
That is such a great point. And I mean, I'm a case study in that. So my business pre 2020 was Atlanta based, where I am. And I mean, when I had a meeting with a client, I was getting in the car and driving to that
Mhm.
client meeting and
Mhm.
putting on meeting clothes and all of the things we do, right?
Mhm.
And like, now when I started building out the online piece of my business, when I saw what was possible with the course business, that shifted so much. But yes, it is two very different methodologies and strategies. And yeah, it is very, very different. But it is something that allows you to scale and go one to
Yeah.
many. It is something that allows you to have, evergreen revenue coming in year round. And those are beautiful things. So it's like a strategy worth doing for sure.
Absolutely. And I love that too. It's like it's a strategy that it's different because when you're doing service work, you're doing sales or client acquisition, the sales
Mhm.
marketing, but then you're doing the work for a majority of
That's
it,
right.
right? And then you kind of rinse and repeat. And you're kind of doing that throughout. But for online business, a lot of it is you create a product once, so that service
Mhm.
work that goes into it, that's the shortest amount of time, right? And the biggest amount of time that you have, the largest amount of time on your online business is the marketing piece, is the piece of just like promoting it, selling it, talking about it,
It
right?
is turning it on its head a bit.
Yeah.
So one of my signature courses is called Amplify Social Impact, and it's kind of a hybrid between online marketing and fundraising. So it's designed to make you money online. And I built that course a few years ago, and I was just in there this week, and I've decided to finally add another module, and it makes sense. And I'm like, ooh, I see where it needs to be. But I was in that course going, it's like you sort of like, wow, I built that. And there are these moments where I'm like, ooh, that's good. But to Holly, to your point, it's like you sort of forget because yes, I built that. I remember like the summer I built it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I put it on Evergreen and there was a set it and forget it type piece to it where I didn't have to go in and keep tinkering with it. And I didn't have to go in and keep adding on to it. Now I'm choosing 2 years later and making some adjustments there and making some adjustments there. But for the most part, I talk about amplify social impact all the time. However, it's because I'm selling it. Yeah. It's because I'm launching it. It's because I am making sure that the students go through it, have what they need. But the actual like delivery of the coursework has been done and is done.
It's already done.
So it is kind of like the exact opposite of that service-based. Yeah.
It is. Business. And it's kind of fun. So talking about that, a lot of people then they drool over the anime eyes, the excitement of this online evergreen development. And then they realize, oh, it's actually a lot of selling. And it's, that's the main part of it. And then they're like, I'm an introvert. I don't like selling. I don't like talking about my things. I don't, you know what I mean? I hate doing that. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but you can learn to love it. You can really learn to love it. And I think there's a part of that, like, don't give up just because if you think I'm an introvert. There's ways that you don't have to be at live webinars selling your stuff.
That's right.
There are other ways to sell, right? So can you kind of talk about that for the people that might have been like drooling to get in and then they realized,
and then they were like, oh no, Christina said we have to sell. I'm out. I'm not doing this. Yeah. I mean, the best thing about running an online business too is like you get to decide your platforms, you get to decide the types of content you're going to create and put out there. So you get to decide all of that. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to be on YouTube Live, you don't have to be on YouTube Live. You could devote your lead gen in different ways. You could decide that it's going to be audio only. You could decide that you're just going to do Canva graphics on social media. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get in front of other people's audiences and build your practice that way. You get to just decide those pieces and what sounds good to you. However, the one thing you do have to do is consistently make offers. Yeah. So if you're not making offers consistently, people simply just will not know that your amazing course or program exists. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that it's like, I have to tell myself that all the time. Mm-hmm. Before I go into a launch, I decide how many emails am I going to send? Because somewhere in the middle of the launch, I'm like, that's too many emails. I decide before I send, the beginning, like before we press play, I've got my entire launch strategies figured out, right? Mm-hmm. It's that same reason. It's like, we want to just decide that ahead of time. And then we press go and people will unsubscribe and that's totally fine. And that's all part of the deal. Yeah. And it's just, I think this reframing it as, you're inviting people in because you have proof that what you're doing works. Yeah. And so in some way, you're doing people a disservice by not telling them about it, right? So if I only tell, like, I'm thinking about my street right now. So if I stand in front of my mailbox and I tell people about my course, like the 2 houses nearest to me will hear, right? But if I keep walking down the street, people are going to hear about it. And it's like, we stand in front of our mailbox, we say it once, and then we're mad it didn't work, right? But like, you got to say it frequently. You got to say it loud. You got to say it often. And I think that, our egos, we all have them, are worried that lots of people are going to have judgments and be like, they're talking about it too much or they're saying it too often. And it's like, the minute you just let people have that and you don't listen to that ego side of you, the easier it all gets.
I love that. I love that so much because you're also talking about like, talking about your offer and making sure like, I do believe in it. And for those of you out there who are like, but I'm just creating something new. I don't have any case studies. Well, how did it work for you? Why are you creating it? Like when I first made my grant writing master course, which has like over 1,000 students now, but back in when I first made it, it didn't have any, right? There was none. So, but it was what a formula I used that I knew helped get funding. So I used myself as a case study, right? So
that's right. Don't
worry, if it's working for you, it's working for someone. So if you want to train other people on how to do something, whatever that is, that's, even if you're a step or two, and this is the other thing where people get held up. I need to take a big course on that. I need to learn. I need to read all these books about it. And it's like, you're going to get so far away of anyone else taking it that they're not even going to understand you. So even if you're a step or two ahead, you can still teach on something. You can still
100%. And we will go into that in such detail. I feel like in the conference of like, all right, here's how to start. Here's how to get your audience going. Yeah. Right. But, someone came to me recently and they're one of my private coaching clients and they built a few courses and they're amazing courses and they've never marketed them to anyone. It's There's no one in the courses. And I'm
No.
no, 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 no. I was like, let's get your courses out into the world, and you're on probation. You cannot build any more courses until we sell these. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's our creative. I get it. Like, that's the creative entrepreneurial spirit. Like, you just want to create and you just want to put it out there. But it is so, so important that you're regularly getting it in front of the right people, right?
Yes.
And that it's not a hobby, it's a business. We're regularly selling it. And you can do it if you're an introvert. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room.
Yep.
Like, I was actually pretty shy, and I feel like I'm somewhere between an introvert and an extrovert right now. Like, it is possible for any type of person to be successful in this. I think it's if I could say one thing, it's like, you kind of got to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and just talk about the value that it is, like the value that.
I love that too, because I've seen so many people too be like, I've got to get everything perfect before I even put one post out on it, because they think hundreds of people are going to immediately like, no,
and they're all going to study it. Right. I mean, we do, we think this, like, we totally do. And we all have that, like, part of our brain that's like, it has to be perfect. So I launched my podcast earlier this year, the Purpose and Profit Club, and podcast episode number 1 is sort of very meta, and it's called Minimum Viable. So it's MVP, minimum viable product. And it was about, how do I get this podcast out into the world and have it be imperfect and not have the exact SOPs and the exact right tech and their exact right, because if I looked for that, and if I consumed every book and asked every person and everything, I would never get it out the door. Yeah. And the same as for the course world. Like, you have to do your minimum viable to get your course, do the beta version. You can always add to it. You can always do a second draft, but like, you have to let those people, especially those first few students, go through the course, give you the social proof, get the feedback, hear the testimonials, hear the feedback where you want to improve upon it. And you'll never do that if you're trying to like find, I think people get really stuck in like the perfect course software, the perfect sales page, right?
Yes.
And it's like, oh, we do this to ourselves. And that's the piece where I'm like, you're not allowed to consume too much. Like, we go in, we consume what we need, and then we take action. We take action. We take action. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done at least 2 of my courses were beta courses that I developed and I sold before I completed them. So
that's right.
Yeah. And it was like, and for me, it was like, that's marketing proof that people want this, for me to even develop it and get paid while I'm developing it. And then give them a good price too, at a beta price. Right. So then to get that social feedback. So, and to kind of, as we were moving through it, to be like, this is where I'm going next and planning. What else would you guys want added in this? Like, it was fantastic. I love doing that, so yeah.
I think that a lot of people have some trepidation around doing it, like selling it before it's built. And I think that I've only ever done it that way, so much so that my most recent course, which was a pretty intensive course, it wasn't until like we were like into week 1, that cohort, because I like taught it live. But it was like, oh yeah, I pre-sold this. Like, it was just normal to me. Like, I was like, oh, this is just how I create courses. So, I knew my curriculum. I was a couple weeks ahead in designing the curriculum, but to the listener, like, I hadn't totally recorded and done all the curriculum, and I already had a cohort in it. Yeah. But it gave me so much freedom, because I was actually hearing in real time, where are their sticking points? Ooh, where do I next week need to add a little something? Where did that run a little long? Or do they need a template for this? And I didn't know that they needed a template for this. And I think a few years ago, that version of Christina would have felt maybe a little nervous or intimidated, like, oh, I didn't deliver the right thing they needed. And instead I'm like, oh my God, I got them to like 95%, and this is going to take them to 110%. Like and I was hearing in real time their feedback and their aha moments and things like that. And it ended up being a really, really powerful group of people. And they got very, very connected, because it was a small group too, because it was, that beta version. So there's a lot of goodness in the beta version. So don't avoid it.
I love it. And there's no like right or wrong way. The only wrong way, I would say, quote unquote, is not doing it, or developing it and
not selling it.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? And then getting caught up, like, it's not perfect. And, just, so there's definitely like room to like move as an entrepreneur and as a creator, but coming back to that marketing piece, like, how else can you embrace your course and start loving to market? I mean, what are other ways that, like, because you don't even necessarily need social media to market your courses and stuff like that. You know, you can do it through podcasts, you can do it on YouTube, you can do it, like, those aren't
Email.
really search
Yeah.
engines. They're like, you know, they're not
You
necessarily
could
social
just
media.
blogging. I mean, you can partner with other people's audiences and build your email list that way, get in front of other people's audiences. Yeah, you don't have to love TikTok. You do not have to dance in front of a reel. We will not make you, and you can still be selling evergreen courses. Like, but I think what's important, even Pinterest, we didn't even talk about that. That has worked for many consultants. I think the point though is don't throw spaghetti at the wall. Pick one or two platforms that you like. So if you're somebody who enjoys storytelling and writing, maybe it's blogging and email, and you want to build up your email list that way. If you're somebody who's like, I want to be in front of the camera, maybe it is YouTube and doing some video lead magnets or something like that. You know, there's so many different ways you can slice and dice it. But I think where we start to feel that burnout, we start to feel just like, is when you're like, I have to be on LinkedIn, TikTok, and all the things, you know. So pick a couple and go all in. And when you go all in with those, do not go all in for like 2 weeks or a month, right? That is not all in. Yeah, I know you're nodding. Like, at least 90 days. I told my email marketing class, I'm like, they were making these huge changes in the frequency, the tone, the content, how much they're selling in their emails. These were nonprofits for the most part. And I'm like, you have to give it at least 3 months. You're not allowed to say, oh, this was uncomfortable, or, oh, this didn't work. I was like, really, I want you to give it 6 months, but at least 3 months of consistent before you look at the data and make any decisions or change. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just telling you in the green room too, because I just hired someone from my YouTube channel to really, you know, pay some attention to it, right? And to go all in on it. And same thing, it was like 6 months. Let's do a 6-month contract just to start.
Yep.
And even then, here's some of our goals, but we don't need to feel, you know, negative or shamed if we don't meet these goals. There are just some parameters that we'll at least know in 6 months, are these even good parameters to have, right? So you don't really, it takes time to get data, right? And it takes time to really know, like, if you change too much at once, it's kind of hard to know, like, what was.
It's impossible to figure out what it was, right? If you change too many things at once. Yeah, for sure.
So if you guys are like hemming, like vibing with that, because part of marketing is data. I know a lot of you grant writers especially are like, okay, but I like data. So if you like data, and even if you don't right now, but then you start looking at data tied to your marketing, you're going to start to really love it. And it's going to start to even maybe be a value.
Oh my God. If you love data, this is so funny, because I feel like usually my audience isn't that into data, maybe because they're like the marketers of the world, right? So the grant writers are like, yes, if you love data, then this aspect specifically of like having an online course business, you'll love. I was looking at my spreadsheet the other night of like past launches, subject lines, open rates, click-through rates, conversions. I mean, and this was very kind of just basic, high level, but I mean, you can really figure out, where did they come from? Where are the leads who are converting into your courses come from? And boy, there is some very clear, like, you can figure out where they're coming from and where they're not. And then stop spending time where they're not. Double down on where they are. And that is how you really get to momentum. And that's something that, like, I did not enjoy that process, but I was like, we're doing this process, Christina. You know, just like, where are they hanging out? Exactly. So it's worth it. It's worth it for sure.
It's like, maybe not doing it, but like having it, right? And even looking at like saying Google Analytics, or if you have like some kind of like where you're selling your courses, like how many are sold, who are you selling to, all of that. And it really makes like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Even on my YouTube, she started doing, saying, where are your subscribers? She's like, you know what, your subscribers, Holly, they listen to a lot of they watch a lot of motivational speakers on YouTube. And that was just like an interesting data point. And it was like, let's tuck that away, because that might be of use later, right? And that's just an interesting trend. Then you're seeing about these people who are attracted to you. So it was like, oh, wow,
that's such a great point, because one of the things that, when you're trying to get your course in front of other audiences, is figuring out, what is that other alignment? Like, where is the overlap of the Venn diagram, right? If I'm selling X, okay, what is the overlap to why audience where there's that sweet
Yeah.
spot, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not completely clear, but like, that's a great example of like,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe I want to talk to somebody who's a thought leader in the self-development space. And even though that might not seem exactly right, I see that there's some alignment there or something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's a
but
good
being
idea.
willing to just look at that
Yeah.
is gold. Yeah.
And if you don't have your stuff out there, you guys, you're not going to get this
Yes.
data. So it's
That's
like,
right.
that's part of
You're
it.
just going to have the course hanging on a shelf, a digital bookshelf. Don't do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's not going to bring in the data. So you need to be pushing it out there. But there's the beauty of that is you can market in so many different ways, right? When you have something that's on demand, so evergreen course, a book, etc., right? So you can be marketed in very many ways that are also evergreen. You were talking about writing a blog. Once that's there, it just starts indexing, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do that lead to it, but you do need to like freshen up your marketing a lot. But if you're in the space where you're like, that sounds attractive to me, then do look into this, come to the nonprofit consulting conference, because Christina's going to go all in on showing you how to do this. Because for my business, it transformed my business completely. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's
I also
amazing.
want to offer if building a course and I'm saying like modules and lessons and if that sounds a little bit like a beast, like too much, you know, I'm doing air quotes, courses on Evergreen that are actually just mini courses. They're 2-hour workshops that I've condensed in a way that is bite-sized. So you could actually build your very first Evergreen course could be a mini course.
Yep.
And that is a value packed. And then, I mean, now I'm going to nerd out and go, well, that's an upsell, or that could be an order bump later. So it doesn't have to be your your MVP does not have to be a 10 module templated worksheet coaching calls. It can be a 2-hour mini course. And those are some of the most easy, like bite-sized ones that your students will love because they can consume it quickly and see results quickly. So it doesn't even have to be something crazy and dense to actually tackle the curriculum.
Yeah. And to your point, like those are actually becoming more popular, so
Yes.
when I look at, cause I buy on-demand courses and all the things as well. And I always look for like, little snacks, right? So I'm like, are your videos an hour long? Cause I'm not going to consume those, but if they're 5 to 7 minutes on something specific, I'm going to consume that, right? Or I can get through it in a day. If I can get through it, then I'm good. So
we want the results. I mean, like as the course designer, we think we want to give everybody the kitchen sink, but the student wants the course results the fastest, easiest way possible. I don't want to go through 10 modules if I don't have to, if I can get it in 6, right?
Yeah. If I can get the results in 30 minutes by applying whatever and then do it, you know what I mean? Then I want
totally.
that. I'm like,
and I will pay more for that. I will pay more for the fast result.
It doesn't mean I'll pay less. It means I'll pay more, right? So that's the other thing is don't think the more you put in something, the more expensive it needs to be, or the less time you spend in it. If it's about the results, right? It's about how fast can you show something to get someone to move from A to B, right? For me, it's about teaching them how to write a grant or starting a grant business, right? So it's like, if I can get you there and you can get in there and anything you need at any time, you can quickly find it and have a template or have something that you can then get that result. That's what I give you, right? And that's, I think, what's really powerful is remembering like, what's the real thing? Like, what's your specialty in your nonprofit consultancy? If you're in marketing or fundraising or whatever, can you create little templates that you can just sell then, right? That nonprofits can use, like all of those types of things. Think about like, what is the quickest way to success? And then how you can market that, right? How you can let people know about that way so they can be successful and reach those outcomes real quick, right? So
exactly.
I love this. So learn how to love marketing, you guys. So thanks, Christina, for coming on again to our Grant Writing and Funny podcast and really talking to nonprofit consultants, because so many nonprofit consultants that really, really interested in building some kind of product like this. And they, just don't really know where to start. But I think knowing that just the process and like we talked about today, what it is, we can find out what you're going to market. We can talk to you guys about that at the conference, right? But as far as like the mindset around it and the system is different than your agency.
I would say this, like homework assignment between now and the conference is this, like, yes, work on your mindset of just, it's not selling, it's inviting people in. That's it. You're inviting them to whatever it is that can help them, not help you, help them.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of like actual tactical homework would be pick a place. My recommendation would be email to start building a list. Like even if you just stick it in a Google sheet for now, where you're like, all right, I got it in a Google sheet, or pick a place, even if it's just LinkedIn, you're just going to hang out and start interacting on LinkedIn, a platform between now and then, so that when you really do start selling this, and you will after the conference, that you'll have a place where you actually already have some buildup of people who are know, like, and trust you. So
I love that.
Start with that.
I love it. Then you guys will be ready. So, all right. So
you'll be ready.
Yeah, then you'll be ready for us. So again, definitely come to the Nonprofit Consulting Conference on August 23rd and 24th. You actually speak on both days, and we're doing a panel as well that we didn't talk about, but you and I and Sean Kasofsky are doing a panel. Yes. So we're going to be talking about doing partnerships and how you do partnerships to leverage your business, because we've all done things together.
That's right.
And so we can show you some of our case studies of what has worked really well, and then what's kind of flopped a little bit, but still did I get payoff. So,
I mean, you're going to learn from our mistakes, and we're here to just tell you the real. So yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. So Christina, for people wanting to know more about your business, where can they find you?
Yes. So on Instagram at Splendid Consulting, I'm over there quite a bit. And the Purpose and Profit Club podcast. Go check out my podcast. It is the intersection, I would say, of mindset and strategy. So that is the place.
Oh, I love it. So definitely if you guys podcast listeners, jump over there, subscribe. That's going to be awesome. I love that you're starting a podcast this year. It's so amazing. So love having another podcaster on. It's fun. Yes. All right. Well, I will see you at the Nonprofit Consulting Conference. Christina, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of your wonderful energy and your skills and your knowledge on this topic. So we'll see you soon.
Always good to see you.
Yes. Bye-bye.